Have you ever been in a situation where someone hits you with an accusation that is so out there, so completely untrue, it just stops you in your tracks? It's like reality itself bends for a second. You know the feeling. Maybe you're being called a liar by the very person you just caught in a lie. Or you're called selfish by someone who has only ever taken from you. Well, today we're going to conduct a forensic deconstruction of that exact moment. Because this isn't just a simple argument, it's a high-level power play. It's a system designed to weaponize your own integrity against you. So let's get into it.
And look, this isn't just some catchy phrase. It's a diagnostic tool. It's for navigating what is essentially psychological warfare. In these dynamics, you have to understand that the loudest, most passionate accusation is almost never about finding the truth. It's a confession, just disguised as blame. A manipulator, we'll call them an operator, hides their own mistakes, their own transgressions by projecting them onto you. It's a strategic smokescreen. They create this huge fire of your supposed guilt just to hide the embers of their own.
So here's our roadmap for this masterclass. We're going to move through 6 phases. First, we'll start with the confessional accusation itself. Then we'll dissect that disorienting feeling it creates, something we call the injustice hijack. After that, we'll map out the 4-phase engine that actually drives the attack, the externalization loop, and explore the deep-seated psychology that makes us all so vulnerable to it. And then, most importantly, we're going to equip you with the Mirror-Audit Protocol. This is a method to completely neutralize the attack and see that hidden confession for exactly what it is. Okay, let's start with what we call the mirror trap. Imagine an operator holding up a distorted mirror to you. Now, in this mirror, you don't see yourself. What you see is a perfect reflection of their flaws, their dishonesty, their insecurity, their disloyalty. But because they're the one holding the mirror, they control the narrative. They accuse you of being that twisted image. And the trap is they leverage your own innate desire for fairness, for truth, as the very weapon they use to hide what they've done. You get so focused on trying to fix the reflection that you don't even notice the person holding the mirror. What's absolutely critical to understand here is that this is a preemptive strike. In these situations, the first person to point the finger isn't looking for the truth. They're looking for a distraction. See, their own actions have created this painful internal conflict, a gap between who they think they are and what they've actually done. And their ego just can't handle it. So, to relieve that pressure, their defense mechanism goes on the offensive. The goal isn't to solve anything, it's strategic displacement. They create a loud, dramatic crisis all about you, to make sure nobody ever looks at the quiet crime scene they left behind. Right. Let's shift focus to what it actually feels like to be on the receiving end of this. Because if you've been there, you know this feeling intimately. It's way more than just being angry. It's this profound sense of moral confusion. Like reality itself is being warped. We call it the injustice hijack. The operator literally commandeers your sense of fairness, your entire understanding of the situation, with the sheer force of a lie. And all of a sudden, you're in this upside-down world where telling the truth feels like a liability. Now, the neuroscience behind this disorientation is actually pretty fascinating. Your brain, at its core, is a prediction machine. It's constantly building these little models of reality to keep you safe. So when someone hits you with an accusation that is a 180-degree contradiction of the known facts, it triggers what's called a predictive error. The data just doesn't compute. And this neurological glitch, it induces a state of social shock. It's a cognitive dissonance so jarring that your brain literally scrambles to find its footing, leaving you stunned, vulnerable, and honestly, questioning your own sanity. This slide just captures the source of that shock perfectly. On one side, you have the operator's narrative, and it's delivered with this unshakable, absolute certainty. And on the other side, you have your own lived reality. The space between these two columns, that's the battlefield. Your brain is desperately trying to reconcile two completely opposing data sets. And because the operator's attack is so confident, so aggressive, a little part of your mind starts to wonder, wait, is my own data corrupted? That's the entry point. That's how the manipulation begins. If this attack keeps going, it leads to something we call the erosion of cognitive sovereignty. Think of your mental focus like a battery. The massive cognitive load of constantly defending yourself, replaying events in your head, trying to prove a negative against a lie that's told with total confidence, it just drains that battery dry. Your own truth starts to feel weak, insufficient against the relentless certainty of their blame. And over time, this can create a state of learned helplessness, where you just get exhausted from fighting a phantom and you start to accept a reality you know deep down isn't real. So how does this happen so systematically? I mean, this isn't just a random emotional outburst. It's a machine. It's a 4-phase engine we call the externalization loop. And the sole purpose of this loop is to establish a very specific power dynamic. The operator casts themselves as the judge, the ultimate arbiter of morality, and they force you into the role of the defendant, someone who is perpetually on trial for a crime you never even committed. This is where the trap slams shut.
So how do they do it? How is that internal feeling of guilt, that psychic weight, lifted right off their shoulders and placed squarely onto yours? Well, it happens through this predictable 4-step process. This is the blueprint. It's designed to lock you into a defensive position that you can't escape from. You can only get exhausted by. Let's break down the mechanics of this machine.
All right, let's dissect this loop phase by phase. It all starts with phase 1, the transgression. The operator lies, they cheat, they betray a value they claim to hold dear. This creates a painful internal conflict. To fix it, they move to phase 2, the displacement spike. Their ego defense mechanism finds a target, you, and pins that unwanted trait onto you. This is the accusation that causes that social shock we talked about. Now here's the leverage point. Phase 3, the defensive diversion. You, being a reasonable person, defend yourself. You argue, you explain, you provide evidence, but your defense is the key that locks the trap. It creates a status vacuum where the entire conversation becomes about proving your innocence, not examining their guilt. Their original mistake? It's just gone. And finally, phase 4, the moral inversion. After you're totally worn out, they might graciously forgive you or agree to move on, cementing their role as the wise, magnanimous judge in this reality they've built. And this is the brutal elegance of the whole trap. It's a self-reinforcing feedback loop. The more you struggle, the tighter it gets. To an outside observer, or even to the operator's own distorted view, your passionate defense can actually look like evidence of guilt. You know, why are they so defensive if they have nothing to hide? You're just reacting to the injustice of it all, but your reaction becomes the very fuel for their narrative. The sound of their blame is strategically amplified by your own defense, and it completely drowns out the fact of their guilt. We've broken down the what and the how, but why is this so brutally effective? Why don't we just, laugh off these absurd accusations? Well, the answer is rooted in our own biology. The operator isn't just playing a mind game. They are hacking our deepest, most primal programming. They're playing on our social survival instincts, our hardwired need for justice, for status, and for a good standing in our community.
And get this, our vulnerability here doesn't come from a weakness. It comes from the weaponization of our greatest strengths. Your integrity, your loyalty, your fundamental desire to be seen as a good and fair person. These are the exact leverage points the operator uses to gain control. They are literally turning the core of your character into a tool for your own subjugation.
So these are the primary leverage points. First, our biological drive for justice. A false accusation feels like a threat to our very survival, and our nervous system is hardwired to fight back against that threat. Second, status assessment. Our brain immediately starts calculating the reputation risk. This accusation threatens our social standing, which triggers a primal need to defend it. Third is the victim frame trap, which is incredibly powerful because it exploits our natural empathy and our instinct to believe someone who claims they've been hurt. And finally, the spotlight effect. Our brain's tendency to overestimate how much other people are noticing us, which just magnifies the pressure to fix this false narrative right. Let's just zoom in on that victim frame trap for a second, because it is devastatingly effective. The operator exploits a cognitive bias called the halo effect. They know that our brains use shortcuts, and one of those shortcuts is to assume that the person expressing the most pain is the one who's been wronged. So by performing victimhood, by acting hurt, outraged, betrayed by your supposed actions, they hijack this perception. To anyone watching from the outside, their performance creates a narrative where you, by default, become the aggressor. That's how they can turn an entire group against you without a single shred of actual evidence. Okay, we've deconstructed the system. We understand the mechanics, we understand the psychology. So now we shift from analysis to application. How do you dismantle this machine from the inside? How do you neutralize the attack and reclaim your cognitive sovereignty? The answer is a precise, actionable strategy we call the Mirror-Audit Protocol. This is the fundamental mindset shift you have to make. As long as you play the role of the defendant, you are in their frame, playing by their rules, and you cannot win that game. The goal is to stop trying to clean that distorted reflection in the mirror they're holding up. You have to step back, drop the defensive posture, and become an observer of the person holding that mirror. Your focus shifts from, how can I prove I'm innocent, to a new, much more powerful question. What is this person's accusation telling me about them? Now, to make this shift, you have to adopt what's called the jade refusal. And this is a non-negotiable tactical decision. Do not justify your actions. Do not argue about the details. Do not defend your character. And do not explain your reasoning. Each one of these actions, justifying, arguing, defending, explaining, is a doorway that leads you right back into their courtroom. Engaging with them validates their frame. It gives them more emotional data to use against you, and it fuels the very fire you're trying to put out. You must refuse to play the game. Period. So here's the 3-step protocol. It's simple. First, cognitive reappraisal. The moment that accusation hits, instead of getting defensive, get curious. Mentally label what's happening. This is projection. This is an externalization signal. This simple act is a pattern interrupt. It keeps your rational brain online. Second, enact the jade refusal. Use a calm, neutral statement to refuse their narrative without escalating the situation. And we'll give you the exact words in just a second. Third, the internal pulse check. This attack is designed to spike your adrenaline, so counteract it. Take one slow, deliberate breath. This tells your own nervous system that you're safe, and it disarms the manipulator's primary weapon, your emotional reaction. This phrase, this is your tool. It's a narrative firewall. It is so powerful because it's both neutral and honest. That is your perspective, acknowledges their right to have their own thoughts without validating them as fact. But it is not the reality, calmly and cleanly draws a boundary. It invalidates the accusation's claim on objective truth. It doesn't argue, it doesn't defend, it simply refuses the frame. It shuts down the externalization loop cold. And this brings us right to the ultimate takeaway. Once you understand this system, you really do develop a kind of psychological immunity. You can't unsee it. From now on, every wild accusation you encounter is going to be filtered through this new lens. And it'll reveal not the supposed flaws of the target, but the clear, undeniable anxieties and transgressions of the accuser. So let's summarize the intelligence. The system is the externalization loop, a machine that hijacks your natural defensive reflex to trap you in a game you can't win. The psychology is the weaponization of your own biological drive for justice and social standing. But the most critical strategic insight is this: awareness collapses the entire system. Once you see the game for what it is, you're no longer a player stuck in the defendant's box. You're an observer with a full view of the entire board, and an observer cannot be manipulated. And so we end right where we began, with this foundational truth. The next time you feel the heat of some bizarre, unjust accusation, don't look at the imaginary flaws they claim to see in you. Look at the finger that's pointing. It is always pointing away from the real issue, away from the real transgression. It's pointing away from the truth they are so desperate to conceal. The accusation is not an indictment of you. It is a map that leads directly to what they are hiding.